Timiyan, what do you think about this act?
Yeah, I believe first and foremost, democracy is not what is practiced without a periodic election. In other words, periodic election is one of the major tenets of a democratic setting. And thank God, in every election, the electoral acts, the laws governing every electoral process is very much important. And this enactment or the amendment on this electoral act brought some sort of respite and hope to Nigerians in general. It will further redefine our electoral process, particularly with with innovations that has been given legislative backing in the electoral act. One area I would like to talk about, my colleague actually mentioned a lot of changes that has been brought into play, but the area that I want to talk, the party primaries. Section 84 of the amended act talks a lot about the method through which party primaries will be conducted. And this raised and threw up a lot of controversies among politicians, particularly the lawmakers and the governors. And it was like a fight of the two that took place over the weeks. And we saw governors going to the president to lobby, and also going to the House of Assembly, National Assembly, even to lobby for their interests and all that. But lawmakers in particular, those in the green chambers and the red chambers, they believe that it should be direct mode of primaries. Direct mode of primaries in the sense that all the electoral wards, all the party faithful from the various electoral wards across the country should determine who will be the flag bearer of a particular party, and not a handful of few, which is the indirect way, where delegates, otherwise known as electoral college, emerge, few political party leaders, and that are quickly being bought over by super politicians. And they find out that those sets of persons are within the control of the governor. I know what is obtainable in Nigeria, and is in fact almost all the states. Most governors that have done their first and second tenure always find a way to go back to the red chambers, the Senate. And because there are also people that are there who doesn't want to leave, they begin to come with methods through which they cannot be dethroned. They believe that governors, most of them, are aiming to go to the Senate, and they don't want to leave that place. They now look for legislations that will help sustain themselves, because they believe most of the delegates are within the control of the governors. So that aspect of it is very, very key. And one aspect that I so much love is the duration, 180 days for parties to do their primaries and send in their party candidates to the electoral umpire. That's one area that is very strategic, because we saw all of these things taken, and most times it is at the eve of the general election you saw names going, and sometimes even INEC calls for this name to come before they start moving in, and issues here and there, litigation. There is no time for those that are being oppressed by one way or the other to seek for redress through legal means. But with what it is, and the funding, the year, logistics problems and all of that, I think we are not going to see all of that, because over time, before election, you see elections are even most times postponed as a result of not able to print electoral materials, ballot boxes, and even ballot papers, and all of those who impede on the electoral process. But now all of these have been put to a stop systematically by the duration given, a year to the election. Funding should be completely done, and that is a good aspect of it. And very many aspects of it that we cannot holistically talk about right now, but I know for sure it is a practice mostly for political appointees. Section 84 also talks about subsection 2 precisely, talked about political appointees, people that are maybe commissioners, ministers, special advisors, and others who want to participate in an electoral process should relinquish their position first. Whether they want to be delegates or they want to be candidates, relinquish first. And it's a good one, with a good duration. I think all of these are innovations that will help give Nigerians some sort of hope in determining who becomes their governor, who becomes their lawmaker, who becomes whoever that represents them anyway in the space of government.
Okay, thank you so much, Comrade Jackson Timiyan. You just made mention of Section 84, subsection 12, that states that no political appointee at any level shall be voting delegates or be voted for at the convention or congress of any political party for the purpose of the nomination of candidates for any election. We'll come back to that, but then, Comrade Timiyan, do you think this is fair to appointees if it doesn't apply to everybody in general? I mean, the governors can still contest for presidency without resigning their governorship positions. They can't contest to senatorial or National Assembly positions without having to resign. But then appointees need resign before they can contest. Do you think this is fair?
For me, it's very fair. Fair in the sense that before now, appointees do resign. But now the innovation that I so cherish in this amendment was that appointees are not allowed to be even delegates in an election, in an electoral process, primaries to be precise. And before now, most party constitution allow these appointees, mostly high-ranking appointees of government of that same party, to participate in delegate election, particularly in primaries. And now, like my colleague rightly said, these appointees actually, they are appointed. They are not elective office holders. And they are loyal to a particular person. And when you make such person a delegate, you know where the lines of his voting will go to. So for me, buying appointees from participating in an electoral position is very correct. If you want to do, resign your position. You are an appointee. Your position is not tied to a term, just like that of an elected officer that is tied to become duly entrenched in the constitution of the land. But yours is not like that. It can be terminated at will by your appointee. So what do I mean? It's a welcome development, because we saw a lot of commissioners being delegates because they are commissioners in that regime. And that is all of that this law tends to stop. That if you are not a delegate, you are not a delegate. And look at the options that is given. Indirect, even this option that is given, 3 options: direct, indirect, and consensus. Now, these options also, in a way, jettison the process, although a lot of reasons has been deduced why many, particularly governors and some others that fans the embers of indirect primaries rather than direct. They felt direct would be too expensive, and it's going to take place in a lot across all the wards in Nigeria. And that's going to be so much. Even INEC will not have the personnel to man that kind of election, and it's going to be cut across about 30 parties, 31 parties, political parties that we have. So those are their reasons. But however, I think consensus is also another very turbulent area. How can the consensus be achieved? That's another point of debate that has actually been happening here and there. But these 3 options are okay. But I see also that in the terms of party primaries, the impact is going to be very, very infinitesimal, in the sense that it's going to be like the usual that will still take place, which is the indirect party primaries. And that is what I see many people still going to maintain rather than the direct.
Comrade Timiyan, when he said I think the governors have to resign to contest for other political positions, I saw a smile in your face that indicated they don't have to. So we want to get your reaction.
Actually, they don't have to resign, because if they do, there will be a vacuum. And when there is lacuna in administration, there will be chaos. When they resign, are we going to fill that office? Is it true by an interim regime, which of course constitutionally is not allowed?
But they have deputies.
I agree. What if the deputy is also running for a position?
That's really.
See, my point is that our problem is not a sitting governor or a sitting legislator resigning before you recontest. That is not our problem. Our problem is godfatherism and one man hijacking the whole system and puts it under his pocket to control. That's our problem. And what we should do, we should look, even in the Western world, that have practiced their democracy is as old as 200 years and above. A sitting governor or a sitting legislator do not resign, even if he's seeking re-election. They do not resign. But yet, they cannot control the system by determining they should be the one to get the delegates that will vote them in, even if they want to go 1 million times. No, it is based on their performance. And now what we are looking is instant laws that will determine the process very clean and direct for everybody to participate. That a non-performing legislator or governor do not have the right to seek re-election either to the Senate or for a second tenure by virtue of the power that he wields in controlling of the party delegates. So the process should be open in the sense that a governor that is not doing well will not have, not one man having control. What we see and we have in this country, particularly in Nigeria, even in Delta State, for instance, is most of these party delegates are all loyalists to a particular godfather, a big politician. Probably they were made by him, and they don't have the right to go another way other than his directive. And that's why the governor has the power of maybe 100% or 75% of all the party delegates at his beck and call. He determines who is successor. He determines whether to go Senate or otherwise. Those are the things that our law should strengthen to avoid. Not a governor resigning to recontest. If those things are well streamlined, a governor, whether resigning or not resigning, will be inconsequential. If you don't perform well, you will not go to that Senate that you wish to. It is based on performance and credibility. That's my point of view.
I think I need to make it clearly to Comrade Timiyan. I don't think he's saying that for legislators who want to contest for the same position, or for governors who want to contest for a second term need to resign. I think what he's saying here is, if, for example, we have local government chairman who wants to go to the state houses of assembly, that's a different office entirely. Probably they should resign before they are allowed to contest. And then legislative officers are not executive. They don't really have the kind of power that the executive have, So, still talking about this very clause now, especially for the ruling party. Some people are saying perhaps this is politically motivated to kill the political ambitions of some of those in President Buhari's cabinet. Do you share the same view, Comrade Timiyan?
Well, when an innovation takes place, some persons, no matter how good the law will be, there are some that will be at the receiving end. So those that are, for instance, the appointees of government, Mr. President's cabinet, that are maybe probably from there, they are looking at being a governor or being a senator and all of that. This resignation, they won't welcome it. Of course, they will not welcome it. And why some others that are even in the Senate, just like they are fighting over direct and indirect primaries until the three options were put in there for any of them to be used that is feasible. It's the same thing that is happening. So I don't see it from that perspective. I know the law cannot be rosy for everybody. Even if you want to do the right thing, some persons will be bad and will be actually be fenced out by the right thing. So that is what is in process. So for me, is right, and I think is a welcome development. That's my point.
Okay, Comrade Duro Ufuma, do you think INEC has enough time to implement this act before the next general election?
Yes, we have enough time, especially the funding aspect. I think the Electoral Act now stipulates 1 year to election. So 1 year to election is a big. We are talking of 12 months, 12 good months. I think they have enough time, and they also have been making preparations, awaiting this amendment. So I believe they have enough time. The only thing which also the one of the sessions also stipulated that any INEC officer who compromise, who connive with politicians, to rig elections, I think there's a room there's a session whereby it gives a room for redress, to review the result, and maybe at the end of the day come out with the true result. So I think they have enough time. Because they'll be making preparation, and I think 2023, I firmly believe that INEC will prove they will live up to expectations.
Okay, Comrade Timiyan, there seems to be a lot of views about this Electoral Act. Since 2015, there seems to be this general interest, very special, from politicians to the local man in the street to me and you right now talking about it even 1 week, almost 1 week after it was signed. Is this act any more special than any other act in the Constitution?
Yeah, actually, to me, there are some special area of it. There are things that we're doing before now that were not actually normal. They were disnormal.
Okay.
But the misnomer act, in a way, has been taken away. And again, there are other things that were a little bit normal, but were lacking legal backing. For instance, the transmission of electronic transmission of votes there was no legal backing for it before now. But now it has a legal backing. As well as before now, we always have the problem of overvoting. Most times, a lot of things happen in the polling units. And most of these things that happen is that people tend to even vote more than the number of registered voters, and even far more than the accredited number of voters. But now, overvoting is determined by the number of accredited voters. Because you cannot be accredited and you say you were not accredited and you are claiming you voted. How did you vote if you were not accredited? So all of this has been now taken into cognizance, and in a way it will help us. And also this political neutrality that has been given to members and officials of INEC is also a welcome development. All of this before now, there was no legal backing. Now that it has legal backing well spelled out, I think it's going to redefine and restructure our electoral process going forward. I believe with this, in 2023, we will see a lot of changes that will come into play. But our problem is sometimes we have good laws, is implementation. So the implementation is one area I'm kind of being skeptical about. But I pray and wish that we should implement these laws that have been enacted and duly signed into law in totality.
Can you tell
so
us
that we will not have some
are
problem?
Skeptical about the implementation of this very act?
Why I'm skeptical about the implementation of this act? Not all aspects, some areas.
Like?
For instance, the primaries, the mode of primaries. I see all political parties, most of them will resolve to the normal. The normal in itself, the indirect.
Indirect, yeah.
Most of them will do the direct because they believe the indirect is more favorable to them. And those that are going to participate in the indirect election are skewed in favor of some elements, so to say. And therefore, the direction of their vote is known. So that's the area that I'm very... So the indirect will definitely be thrown aside. The direct, for instance, will definitely be thrown aside by the day.
Definitely.
Although, yes, I'm seeing all of that coming to play by most political parties. Although APC has been saying that before now, even the president's re-election was a direct.
Even the Ocean State APC primary elections we saw was direct primaries.
Yes, it's not by the name. That's where I'm saying the implementation. Most times, the problem is that the problem with direct primaries, the membership of these parties are not. There is no good and defined register for political members of a party in a particular ward. So people can decide to say so number of persons voted for candidate A, candidate B, against candidate B, and all of that.
Like what we saw in Anambra, where the primary election of the ruling APC was more than even the vote cast in the Balfour election. So all of those is going to play out, and that also
jettison the direct election. So I'm going to see the normal taking place majorly in terms of party primaries.
So you're saying it's just word on paper?
Yes, on that. But every other areas I know it will be implemented.
Okay,
But I
that
agree.
is not the case. Comrade Jackson Timiyan, your last word on the program in 30 seconds, very quickly.
For me, this is a welcome development, and particularly Nigerians in general. Let's vote wisely. Let's not get ourselves being bought over by peanuts, and at the end of the day, we cry over nothing.
Okay, Comrade